You're watching Reality Check. This is the second day in a row now that Delhi has been, for the most part, peaceful. When I say for the most part, I mean no reports of any major outbreak of rioting. This doesn't mean that there haven't been individual instances of violence. My colleague Sonakshi reported, for example, of a 23-year-old boy who's been brought to hospital just this evening. His family says he was shot in the leg in the Shivpuri area of Nort-East Delhi this morning. That picture on your screen is something they shared of him from their own personal collection, image of him as a representative image. But even as major violence has started to come down, the death toll has steadily risen. It's now climbed to 38 dead. This paradox is explained perhaps by this, that the many people battling serious injuries inflicted during the riots are one by one not able to keep that battle up. Of the 38 dead so far, 17 has been identified by the Guru Tegh Bahadur or GTB hospital, the main hospital where the dead and injured have been brought. And the list makes for depressing reading. It reflects how the poison of hate scorches all sides. And if we just scroll through the names, there's an Ishaq Khan, there's a Mubarak Hussain, there's a Mehtab, there's an Afsaq, there's a Shahid, there's a Zakir, a Muhammad Furqan, there's also a Veer Bhan, a Pravesh, a Rahul, a Ratan Lal, and Ankit Sharma. These are just some of the names that have been identified. Many, of course, still have not been identified. The youngest is 22, the oldest is 70 years old. Of the causes of death, 10 of the 22 that have been identified, which is just under 50%, are because of gunshot wounds. For a city and a culture unused to large-scale gun violence, that's a very high number. It almost seems like the calls to goli maaro that we've been hearing now for weeks has come home to roost. Outside the hospital's mortuary is a place to witness the human cost of violence, but also, as my colleague Ravish Ranjan reports, to witness the solidarities of pain that are being forged.
Outside Delhi's GTB hospital, Shabnam and Jai Bhagwan, different in faith but united in loss, broke down.
NDTV ज़्यादातर सही दिखाता है, इसलिए हम आपसे रिक्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं। देखो भाईजान, देखो हिंदू मरे या मुसलमान, इंसान है। कुत्ता बिल्ली भी नहीं मरना चाहिए, ना कि इंसानों का इस तरह कत्लेआम हो रहा, वो बहुत गलत है। चाहे मजहब किसी का कुछ भी हो, जीने का हक सबको है। ऐसा नहीं कि मतलब हिंदू मर रहे हैं तो खुश हो रहे हैं, मुसलमान मर रहे हैं तो खुश हो रहे हैं। लोगों के बिजनेस खड़े करने में बरस लग जाते हैं।
हिंदू मुसलमान नहीं है तो करवाती
कोई ना मरे।
Here we come across Zishan, who's looking for a missing relative.
मेरे फूफा गायब हैं, ग्रेटर नोएडा काम के लिए आए थे और वहाँ से जब वापसी लौटे थे तो उन पर लोनी गोल चक्कर पे पथराव हुआ। उसके बाद में वहाँ से लड़का भाग गया था उनका, और उनका कोई पता नहीं है अब तक।
We also meet Hari, the friend of Vivek, into whose head rioters had driven an iron rod.
मेरे जो दोस्त है एक, उसको यहाँ पर एक मोटर घुस हुई है, वो शिव विहार में जा रहा था। शिव विहार में उसको पकड़ा, उससे पूछा कि तेरा नाम क्या है, बाकायदा आईडी दिखाओ। उसने बचने के लिए कुछ झूठ बोला है या सच बोला, कुछ नहीं पता। उसकी मोटर से एक आर्मेचर है जो सर के अंदर घुसेड़ दिया। वो 1.5 इंची अंदर है सर के, अभी भी कितना अंदर है लगभग डॉक्टरों ने सीरियस बता दिया। बिल्कुल डॉक्टरों ने कह दिया ऑपरेशन होएगा, वो भी पता नहीं बच भी जाए या नहीं।
Here we also meet the family of Mehtab, a wage labourer from Brij, Bihar, killed in the violence, whose family is waiting for 2 days to get his body.
मेहताब के जो फोटो हैं वो तमाम सारे मीडिया वालों को
करवा दो। मैं 1000 वाला सूट दिलवाऊंगा तो मैं भाभी मेरी शादी करवा दो।
The family of Veer Bhan from Shiv Vihar, killed in the riots, also has to endure an agonizing wait.
हमारे मामा घर से अपने क्या नाम है घर पे जा रहे थे, तो वहाँ पे क्या होता है, बीच में जा रहे थे रास्ते में से, तो साइड में होकर निकल लेते, साइड में जैसे कि फुटपाथ बनी हुई है, तो साइड में निकल रहे थे, तो जिस कारण से ऊपर से तीसरी मंजिले पे बैठे हुए थे, करीब 4-5 जने थे, राइफल लेके बैठे, पत्थर लेके बैठे हुए थे। उन्होंने फायरिंग करी, उनके सर में गोली मारी, यहाँ से नहीं मारी, यहाँ से गोली निकल गई।
With Ravish Ranjan Shukla, this is Mariam Alavi for NDTV.
All right, joining us tonight on the show, we have Yogendra Yadav, National President, Swaraj India. Also, Raghav Chadha, who's a spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party, is here with us. Chitranjan Singh, former DGP of Gujarat, is joining us from Skype. And here in the studio, we have Naomi Barton, journalist at The Wire, who's also been out and about reporting on these riots. Yogendra Yadav, let's just start first. Before we move on to talking about how we move forward from this, let's just talk a little bit about what is the more depressing aspect of this, because I think you possibly have also been out and have gone to some of those areas which have been affected by violence, as have I, and I've seen, as you have before, riots and their consequences, and I have to say that I have never seen such an acute degree of polarization and hatred that that I came across in Delhi in the past few days.
Are we surprised, Vasu? This has been preceded by such a virulent campaign during elections in Delhi. The kind of things, so first we say goli maaro saalon ko, and then the goli happens. Should we be surprised? So what we have created, and that's the important point, we have all kinds of conspiracy theories and so on, but the simple fact is that we have created an ecosystem, and when I say we, I actually mean those who are ruling the country right now, the regime. It has created an ecosystem where there is such deep hatred which has been, seeds of hatred has been sown. Number two, you have these petty political players of the kind of Kapil Mishras available, who are willing to ignite because they see career prospects in it. A Kapil Mishra clearly can see that if Mr. Yogi Adityanath can make a career out of these kinds of speeches, why can't I? So, the second is we have these actors who are ready to ignite. Third, we have a police force which has learnt that keeping quiet is the safest option. Keep quiet, maybe stand with the goons. They have seen it in Jamia, particularly they have seen in JNU. So they know what to do. So why are we surprised? There is barood, there is matches, and there is no water. This is what was bound to happen, and that to me is the most horrifying thing here. This was not just one conspiracy which happened to have succeeded.
Yes.
It's not an accident. We have the making of it all over, and I fear much beyond Delhi as well. And this is the most dreadful aspect of what's happening right now.
No, and I think what's also worrying is the fact that, look, I mean, it's not as if Delhi has not witnessed riots before, and it's not also as if some of those areas which have witnessed violence are not communally sensitive. There has been an underlying sense, cases of tension. But when we go there and then we speak to people there, they've never witnessed rioting of this scale before. But now they have. So something has shifted. Is it just, as you said, was it just to do with the past several months of a very hate-filled campaign? Or is there something that is happening at a deeper level, at a more extended level that's now acting out?
Vasu, for the last while, almost 2 decades, the communal hatred is being incited, communal polarization has taken place, but even communally polarized societies do not always see riots. This reminds me really of the mentality. You and I both were old enough in 1984 at least to see what was happening. Before 1984, I distinctly remember the manner in which ordinary Hindus used to talk about ordinary Sikhs, the kind of labels and galis they used to attach to that. This is exactly the mental frame that I see now for the last so many months running into it. In 1984, how people from the very top had incited it. That's exactly what I see happening right now. I would say, Vasu, we are actually lucky that violence has stopped where it did. In fact, day before yesterday, I honestly thought we are now at the beginning of, the difference between 30th of November 1984 and 31st of November?
Yes.
30th of November, it was done in small parts of Delhi,
yes,
and people knew it's free for all, no one can stop you. And then 31st saw the worst mayhem. I really feared that we were getting into that. So I honestly feel that maybe some sense has prevailed that it has been stopped where it has been stopped right now.
Well, I agree with you. I also had this awful feeling at the pit of my stomach that it wouldn't just be contained to Shadra and it would start spreading outwards from there, but luckily that didn't happen. You know, one of the reasons is also because the police finally woke up. So I don't know if it was to do with public sanity, but it's also because the police finally seemed like they were out doing their job. But I want to ask you, Yogendra, before I go to the others, about how do you think we move on from here? Because we do have individual examples of extraordinary solidarity. You know, we've been seeing that as well, of Hindus protecting Muslims, Muslims protecting Hindus. There are isolated instances, but how do we try to now fix this in a wider sense? Yogendra, are you able to hear me? Yogendra, I think there's a little bit of a problem with Yogendra's earpiece. Yogendra, are you able to hear me now?
उन्होंने ऑफ कर दिया था.
Okay, we'll try and come back to you, Yogendra, in just a second. I think we have a little bit of a problem with getting through to his audio. But Raghav, just to ask you, I know that you've, I think the government, state government has announced measures to try and sort of address the fallout of this. Have you had a chance yourself to go out and meet people and try and understand what's happening and how bad it is?
Well, yes, I've had the opportunity of, the unfortunate opportunity rather, of, you know, going out and, you know, seeing the unfortunate scenes with my own eyes, including visiting the hospital in which a lot of injured have been taken to, that is the GTB hospital. Today, the Honorable Chief Minister held a meeting where, of course, among deciding the relief and the compensation that needs to be given, certain other measures were also discussed and decided on, which are essentially on the lines of upping the civil administration, the might of the civil administration on the ground, appointing more magistrates, duty magistrates, appointment of SDMs, providing food and milk to all those families who are residing in the affected areas, for which we have deployed hundreds of us civil defense volunteers, appointment of nodal officers who will look after the entire relief and rehabilitation of that particular districts, the 2 districts that we're talking about in Delhi. That, of course, is being done. Having said that, of course, what we have seen in the last few hours in Delhi, last few days in Delhi, has been so unfortunate. You and Mr. Yadav were certainly around in '84. I wasn't born. But what I saw with my own eyes and what I have seen on the television channels is so saddening, and it really, you know, as an Indian, I hold my head in shame as to what has happened to my city or what has happened to my beautiful Delhi. What the government of Delhi, as which looks after the civil administration, can do is doing. Our leaders are out there doing peace marches, meeting community leaders. We have announced helplines. The fire department, as I had outlined the previous day on your show, has been instructed to be on standby, and the entire workings of the fire department is being monitored by the Chief Minister himself. Apart from that, of course, what the civil administration, that is the magistrates, can do are doing. Law enforcement agency happens to be with the union government.
Let me come back to all the measures. I mean, you did mention some of them. I just want to go back to Yogendra once because we've got his line back. Yogendra, I was basically trying to ask you, what do you think is going to now help rebuild this? I mean, peace marches and all that are very well, but what's really the way to try to fix some of these wounds?
It's going to be hard, it's going to be long. Allow me to say just one thing about Delhi government. I agree with much of what Raghav was saying, that yes, of course, the law and order is not the primary responsibility of Delhi government. But does a party which has just won such a massive mandate, does this not have any moral responsibility? Raghav mentioned peace marches. Vasu, please ask any of your correspondents if they saw any peacemaking efforts by a party which had more than 50% votes in this city anyone making peace efforts when violence was taking place. The Chief Minister tweets on Wednesday, when the violence has subsided, he says, it's so bad, please call army. Why was that not done 24 hours ago? These are questions that would need to be answered, but let me focus on the bigger thing, bigger picture.
I would like to respond to all of this.
And the first thing that needs to be, I'm sure.
Yes, I'll come to you, Raghav. I'll come to you, Raghav. Let Yogendra finish. Yes, Yogendra. Yes.
I think the first thing that needs to be done uppermost is to bring those who were inciting violence to book. It could be Waris Pathan, it should obviously be Kapil Sharma, all those who were saying goli maaro salon ko, all of them should be brought to book. The minimum thing required in any violence of this kind is those who have given open calls for violence should get a punishment that they would remember and should become a model for the rest of the country.
Right.
That's one. And number two, everyone in Delhi must be involved in genuine peacemaking efforts, not just dramabaji for the media.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. I just want to get in.
May I respond? I will very briefly respond to this.
Raghav, very briefly, because I don't want to make it into a political sort of slugfest. Very briefly.
No, I don't. I actually, quite frankly, I thought that this is not going to be a political discussion and there will not be any, below the belt attacks. Because we are dealing with a situation which cuts across all this, which is so grim, which is so serious.
Very quickly,
and I thought certainly, a person of the stature of Mr. Yadav will certainly not make these remarks. But since he's made this, let me please highlight that from the minute the violence started, appeals were made by the Aam Aadmi Party leaders on ground and on camera, through video messages, through phone calls and in person. Number two, all our leaders, and I'm going to WhatsApp you right now, I have your number, Vasu, of pictures of all our leaders holding peace marches and meeting community leaders from the day the violence began. And lastly, let me say this, that there was a meeting conducted by the Honorable Home Minister of India in which the Chief Minister did highlight that we must call in the army, where he was assured by all bureaucrats, including the Home Minister, that at this point in time there is no need for the army, and the police and the paraphernalia of the Delhi police is adequate to look after this.
Fair enough, Raghav. I have to move on now. As I said,
we have to keep not doing its duty, that we wrote a letter seeking the intervention of the army, so we should get the facts right before settling political scores, certainly in an environment like this.
Okay. Naomi Barton, you've been out and about. Are you filled with bleak pessimism, or do you see anything that gives you hope?
I don't think that's a fair binary to have, because I feel like pessimism at this point is a privilege and hope is not something that we've earned yet. I've seen some truly horrific stuff taking place. I saw a mosque on fire. There was a Hindutva flag that was set across it, and I did not see the flag being raised at the mosque at the time. When I showed up, it had already happened. But what I did see at the time, which was deeply unnerving, was that a shoe shop underneath that mosque was being looted. And small children that could have been anywhere in between 5 years old and 10, 12 years old were coming in. Adults were exhorting them to do that. They were running out, throwing tables and chairs out of the shops. And what I'm most unsettled by, frankly, is the normalization of this level of violence and hatred with people that are this young.
Right. Chitranjan Singh, you were DGP of Gujarat, and you have seen riots and you've seen the impact of riots. What are the lessons from Gujarat that you think that people in Delhi, whether it's the government, whether it's the police, society, should be learning from?
It's basically, it was the responsibility of the police. Now, policing is no rocket science. You see, when you know that the temperatures are rising, you see the type of injuries, it is the gunshot injuries. So people were already collecting some kind of country-made guns. Now, why the local SHO could not get that information at all? Now, you see, after that speech, when the people started, mobs started going around and shutting shops, it was the time for the police to act. If you don't act in time, then you have seen what has happened. Because in riots, police, the constable who is fighting on the ground sees his leadership. Where is the leader? Now, when the leader is standing with the people who incite riots, then what is the message we are giving? There was a lady DCP who got manhandled in the courts. Where was the police commissioner? Now when the DCP is manhandled, where is the police commissioner? You see,
I want to ask you,
when
since you're bringing up the police and you're bringing up the infirmities, there are two ways of looking at how the police has behaved. One is just simply that there's incompetence. The other is that they're also, in a sense, complicit in the violence, either because of political supervision or otherwise. In terms of what has happened in Delhi, what do you see both? Do you see complicity as well?
I see, complete lack of leadership in the police. When the constable doesn't have the confidence, my boss is standing with me, what do you expect from him? He is our fighting force on the streets.
Right.
Now, when the officers don't come down and stand with the constable, okay, look, we are here to protect you. You please go and do your duty.
Right.
The color of uniform is khaki. It is not saffron or green.
Right.
Why is the color of uniform khaki? It is the color of earth. And we have to act as per the law. Now, when you see violence right in front of you and you don't act, if it is done by, gunshots and fire, you have the orders to fire. You don't need orders from anybody.
Right.
And it is no rocket science.
Okay, you're saying
it's the kind of leadership you give.
Okay, it's the lack of leadership. Is that something?
Yes, totally.
Naomi, that's a deep cause for concern. I mean, I think you must have heard, we all heard when we went out, everyone was complaining about the police and their behavior of the police.
I know that I've personally seen that, I feel comfortable enough saying at this point that calling it incompetence is to be too charitable. I've seen shops that were being burnt in front of me by mobs shouting Jai Shri Ram with a large force. Like, this is not, I can understand one or two constables over there, they're overwhelmed, they don't know what to do, they don't want to aggravate the situation, I get that. But this was a massive force out there, and they weren't doing a thing to stop it. So I went through pretty much all of the most affected areas over the course of 2 days.
Right.
One of the places was called Kardampuri, and over there, a child was shot. A 14-year-old child, Faizan, was shot at 11 o'clock in the morning. So Kardampuri is just ahead of Gokulpuri.
Sure.
There was an entire line, a company of soldiers or policemen who were standing there, who were just waiting and watching. They weren't doing anything at all.
Right.
And when we went to Kardampuri, I'd been there earlier on Monday. This was on Tuesday. And so they told me to come in there, and I saw the child sitting there in a handcart. And I was told, and when I reached there, it had been past 4 o'clock. And I was told that the police had not been letting ambulances into that area, which I found very shocking. So I was with another journalist at the time, Avichar Dubey, and we literally ran out into the streets to try and see whether we could find another police company to speak to about this. When that police company came in, we were begging them, we were asking them, please can you get one of your police cars, which was right in front of us, to take this boy to the hospital. He's bleeding out. He's been out here with an exposed wound for 6 hours. And the sheer callousness of the response we got was shocking. Because they said, why don't you ask someone from the community to take one of their cars out? Why don't you ask a private car to go out?
Okay.
It was horrifying.
Okay, just time for a quick last word, Yogendra. So as you said, it's going to be quite difficult to rebuild from here. But do you at least hope that there will be some maturity, at least when it comes to the political spectrum, that we'll see a dialing down of all this rhetoric that we've seen for the past several months?
One should hope so, because we are not discussing police leadership. That, of course, is a joke, but that's not an accident. The real point is political leadership. It is from the central government, the BJP regime, which is designing it. It is designing it for political benefits. So yes, we should hope that the regime understands that by burning a country, you cannot become its leaders. That's, of course, should be political common sense, but that doesn't seem to be happening. We are entering into a very, very dark times when those who have been elected through democracy are now trying to subvert anything democratic about. This is the dark side of democracy, and only the people can rescue it from that kind of a state.
Okay, well, we live in hope. But thank you all so much for joining us on Reality Check. That's all the time we have. Thanks for watching. Good night.